Crypto Monday, San Juan, let me get a round of applause, let me get a round of applause. All right, you guys, welcome everybody to San Juan Cigar Bar and Lounge. We're here as special guests. We'd like to give a shout out to the owner, Candido. Give him a round of applause, man. He's got a beautiful venue. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about this spot right here, man. This place right here is going to be something that we're going to do something regularly on Wednesdays called Cigar and Cryptos. You guys feel free to come by. We won't do any panels on Wednesdays. We'll just come by and have cigar talk, boss talk. So you guys who are interested in cigar and crypto, come out on Wednesday nights here in Aceh Cigar Bar and Lounge, and you can find us here. So that brings us to, let's give a round of applause for our number one sponsor, Mr. Giovanni Mendez. Go ahead and give a round of applause. So if you guys are interested in moving your company to Puerto Rico, right, or your persons, right, and you're looking for Act 22, Act 20, or Act 60, you go ahead and holler at Mr. Giovanni Mendez. You make sure you tell him I sent you, right, from Crypto Mondays that I sent you there, right, because we got a long-standing history with geotax services. So give Mr. Giovanni Mendez a round of applause. Thank you for showing up, folks. We really appreciate you. With that being said, it's going to bring us to today's sponsor and today's guest. So this man right here, Mr. Tor Bair, is the founder and the CEO of the Secret Network.
Thereabouts.
We're going to have to find out exactly what the Secret Network is. So, Mr. Tor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? Tell us a little bit more about who you are.
For sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I haven't been back in San Juan for like a year and a half because of the COVID. So thanks for having me. Good to be back. Thanks for packing the room. So my name is Tor. I'm the founder and the CEO of an entity called Secret Foundation, which is one of the big entities supporting Secret Network. Secret Network. Whose phone is that? I'm just kidding. Turn it off. Secret Network is a layer 1 network, but it's the only blockchain currently with privacy-preserving smart contracts. So this is kind of the result of a very, very long-term vision about bringing better privacy protections into Web3, into blockchain, which I think now in 2020 or 2021 now, people are finally starting to understand what that contributes. It's more about user security. It's about protecting the people who are going to end up using these systems. It's not about keeping everything hidden from everybody. It's about building systems that are more secure, letting people choose what's public and what's private. We can get into all the ways in which the network tries to accomplish that, but that's a vision. It started in 2015 as white papers, and now here in 2021 we have a live network, we have live products. We're really excited to have people finally getting hands-on with all of these things that for a long time were kind of the vision, and now they are the reality. But the reality also is that we probably have many, many, many more years in front of us trying to get these things to global adoption. You know, the millions and the billions of users, not like the first thousands of users. So for all of you who are also building in this space, like, we know it's going to be a long road from here as well, but like finally this is the first year I think we're all starting to see like maybe the traction that we're seeing this year is laying the foundation for that million, billion user adoption the way that it wasn't in like 2017, 2018, where it was just a little bit too early. It doesn't feel too early anymore, but it's certainly not too late.
Excellent. So one thing I want to ask you about is your name, Tor Bair.
Yeah.
Say this is the name. Like, tell me a little bit more about your name.
Sure. So my last name is unique because no one else in my family has it. So it's Bair. It's B-A-I-R, and the reason I have my last name is actually because my mother, when she married my father, they took the initials of their names and they scrambled them together because their names were way too long and way too Israeli. So it's just 4 letters, B-A-I-R, Bair. But that's why nobody else in my family has the same last name. So if you meet somebody named Bair, I'm not related to them at all. The first part of the name has, if you're familiar with the privacy space, like you think there's an affiliation with Tor Network and that I just totally made it up. That's not true. It's my godfather's name. So I got it from him. And it's just a freak coincidence that somebody decided to create an entire, decentralized privacy network based on the same sort of concept. So I'm also not related to the network. So I'm not really related to anything, I guess, except Secret Network. But yeah, It's a fun coincidence, and maybe it's a little bit of fate.
I don't believe you.
You don't have to.
It's a secret. I'm about to find out. With that being said, tell us a little bit about Secret Network. How did it, Secret Foundation. How did it come about, and what are you guys currently working on?
Yeah, well, I'll answer both, because the foundation directly supports the network, but the history of the network is a lot more interesting than the history of the foundation. So the history of the network is that we started, a lot of the core contributors to Secret Network as it is today. The vision started back in 2015, so a lot of us were at MIT at the time. I was a grad student, and there was a researcher at the Media Lab named Guy Ziskins, and he was a privacy researcher. And he published a white paper called Decentralizing Privacy. And this came out, in early 2015, before there was really like a live Ethereum network. So it was concentrated around how could you combine the Bitcoin blockchain with, software-based cryptography to create a decentralized computing platform with guaranteed privacy, like the kind of bleeding edge stuff that you would expect to come out of that institution. And I have to admit that at the time, I absolutely didn't understand the ramifications of what this actually was, even though Guy was convinced of the importance of this vision. It took many years to kind of build out these initial papers into the further iterations of what this would actually become. And it took the evolution of Ethereum. It took the emergence of all of these different smart contracting platforms. It took the relative success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like the cycles in 2017 and 2018 to kind of carry the whole space forward. But I think in 2020, 2021 is when we're finally starting to appreciate that all blockchains by default have the same problem, which is that all data is public by default. It's a public by default model. And when you put data on chain, and when you send data to a smart contract, to a decentralized application, this is public data. And we talked a lot in like 2019, 2020 about things like Facebook, right? You're sending your data to Facebook, and now Facebook is sharing it with Cambridge Analytica or whomever else, and there's no controls after that data leaves their eye, and there's all sorts of moral hazard involved, and eventually all your data and your social security number is public because Equifax sucks as a company. Sorry if there's any employees here. There shouldn't be. But the net of all of this is to say blockchains are even worse than that. Blockchains are worse than Equifax if you care about privacy, because blockchains by default leak all of your data to everybody all of the time who interacts with the chain, not just the people who actually get access to the systems, but everybody by default. So Secret Network is the evolution of this private by default model, where by default the data and the interactions with the blockchain are private, and then when you choose to, you can make it public. Once something is public, it's impossible, essentially, to make it private again. But if it starts private, it can be selectively reviewed. That's why we took the private by default approach, because we didn't want to end up in a Web3 world where everything runs on smart contracts, but it's worse than the privacy world we came from in Web2. To me, that's like the worst case outcome. We end up in an even more surveillance-driven society, even though it's more decentralized, maybe, it's not more empowered because of the privacy problem. So that's what we exist to solve.
So you didn't go the privacy route because you were trying to hide something, you were just trying to make sure that you had the ability to hide something just in case you wanted to.
The way that I frame it, because like, everybody's like, oh, everybody's got something to hide, right? Like you always hear it that way, it's like everybody's got...
Everyone does have something to hide.
But I don't say that, I say everybody has something to protect. Because that's true. Like, there's stuff that you just don't want to put on a blockchain, like a social security number. But it goes beyond that. Like, there's much... The reason we called the network Secret Network, it's a very deliberate branding. And people are like, why did you call something secret when you know that like governments get pissed off when you talk about privacy and things like that? Well, a secret is a very deliberately chosen word. Because a secret is something, everybody has their own secrets, but they're not always bad secrets. They're just things that you want to be able to choose to share with people that you trust, and not everybody. It is sort of like a permission structure. There's things that you want to be able to share with a trusted friend, and not your Uber driver. Or there's things you do want to be able to share with your Uber driver so you can get home, but not literally everybody else using the application. So secret was chosen because everybody has something to protect. Not something they want to hide from everybody that they'll never share, but that when they share it, they know it's been protected in the right ways. That's what we set out to build.
And how close, you guys already launched live?
So, Secret Network Mainnet went live in February of 2020, which is right around the time that the world closed. So, go figure. We didn't do it, I'm sorry. I want to clarify that. That wasn't our fault. But then we added the ability to do privacy-preserving smart contracts and private computation in September of last year. So we're going on about 6 months of having privacy-preserving smart contracts live on the network. Now we have our entire application ecosystem emerging. We have people building a lot of like decentralized financial applications. We have people looking into non-fungible tokens on the network because privacy unlocks, and this type of privacy, right, in particular, not absolute privacy, but programmable privacy, that unlocks all of these different kinds of use cases across Web3. And the very first thing that we launched outside of the smart contracts on the network was a bridge to Ethereum, because that is where all of this experimentation currently is. That's where all of the usage currently is. And we want to ensure that users of Ethereum can also benefit from the privacy protections of networks like Secret Network. We don't want to be an island. We want to be a hub for all of this. Every blockchain has this problem, so why would we only solve it for ourselves?
It makes sense, right? So, there's certain things, right, that people say that, you shouldn't reveal. Like you said, social security numbers. A good thing is, banking numbers, routing numbers, things of that nature. Identity information. There's a variety of things, right? Maybe some people's health records, right? People's health records need to be remain private. So I'm sure that, there's a lot of interest in privacy on these blockchains, the databases. Where do you see, what are some of the enterprise level type applications that you see coming from these types of applications?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, when enterprises look at blockchains, they see something really exciting and experimental, and maybe they see a PR opportunity, but they don't necessarily see something that infrastructurally they want to integrate, which is why we spent so many years with people building private blockchains. But not the kind I mean, right? Like not the kind where it's like, we're a permissionless network, we're a public network, but we have privacy. For years, enterprises were just like, we'll just build our own, right? Like we're gonna use private blockchains that we deploy ourselves. Not a lot of those projects are doing very well. What they're realizing now is the power is using public and permissionless networks, but they still need privacy protections for their own data. The same way that like every enterprise in the world wants to be able to securely share data with whom they choose, but maybe not directly with their competitors. So some of these secure data sharing use cases are the types of enterprise level use cases that we're looking at for the protocol, because like let's say that you're a large international bank and you have multiple branches. These branches want to be able to share information directly with each other, but they don't, there's all sorts of legal constraints for doing so. Having a secure data sharing platform is valuable. But this takes a long time to realize, not because necessarily the technology isn't always there, but a lot of the time with enterprises, the concern is more just, you have to do this as a cross-industry initiative, or you need like political will from the top of the organization. So I think you're going to start seeing more experimentation from smaller enterprises or in non-US jurisdictions. And then eventually, you're going to see it start to bubble up to this highest level. And you're already seeing enterprises start to experiment with things that feel more like games, like with NFTs and things like that. Like they're a lot more comfortable experimenting with things when they look like games and they look like they're not being taken seriously. But these same companies that are experimenting with NFTs, you better believe they're also looking at using public blockchain technology and privacy on public blockchains to serve like supply chain use cases and things that are substantially more complex. And I think we're going to start hearing more about that as more privacy solutions start to emerge. That's really been the blocker.
I would imagine with the coronavirus and the pandemic, the way it's changed the way we interact and social distancing, a lot of more work is being done on the internet now. I would imagine that privacy interest is drawn and is spiked for sure as well, no?
It definitely has. I mean, all things internet have spiked. If you guys remember when everybody went to Zoom and everybody had to use Zoom forever, Zoom started with
I'm still paying them $100 a month. Remind me to cancel that.
I'm glad I could save somebody some money tonight. Yeah, Zoom had atrocious privacy protections when it launched, and they took a lot of well-deserved flack for those privacy protections. And we've seen now at least journalists starting to cover more and more, like every time there's a privacy breach, every time there's a failure of a new technology, they take it seriously knowing that there's an audience for it. It used to be that audiences and readers didn't want to read about it because they didn't understand it, it didn't affect them personally. And then after Cambridge Analytica, not really after COVID, but after that scandal in particular.
Shout out to Brittany Kaiser. We'll see you soon, baby.
I went to high school with Brittany.
Did you really?
Yeah. Yeah, so she won't be here.
She comes here often, bro.
I know, but she won't come if I'm here.
Oh, yeah. I just been in Puerto Rico. I didn't. You're not. She comes here often.
She's cool. She's a Chicagoan like me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't go to high school with her, so.
Nah, she's been on my podcast. I love Brittany. I wish she were here. So what I was saying, yeah, like that's when they kind of got into the public consciousness, and people like Brittany and have really done a lot of work in trying to get people to understand the ramifications of that issue. What I don't think people understand yet is like, yeah, it's an issue in the legacy world, in the Web 2 world. And then I see journalists write these articles, it's like, well, don't worry, blockchain will fix it. And then they don't say how because they don't know how, but they're just like, don't worry, we have blockchain, so privacy is solved. And I'm the guy writing the op-eds that says, actually, you just made it like 100 times worse and you just don't know it yet. So hopefully this is the year where people start to understand that blockchains are actually not a privacy solution, they're a massive privacy problem, and we start to take the solutions seriously. But we can definitely say we're in a better position as a privacy project than we were in 2017 or 2018, when people, their first feedback to us was like, well, people are never gonna care about privacy, so why should they care about you? We don't get that anymore. Nobody starts the conversation with that anymore because they know that it's wrong. They know that people do care. They know that when WhatsApp announced they were sharing all the data back with Facebook, Telegram and Signal were the two most downloaded applications. So we don't get that pushback anymore. Now the question is, okay, so why does what you're doing matter particularly for what we're trying to do with blockchain? It's a completely different conversation. It's a much better place to start the conversation. COVID is only a part of it because it forced so much commerce, so much interaction to move online, so then everybody was constantly confronted with the privacy issues. But if I meet you in a bar, and it's loud, and I whisper to you, I know you heard it, and I know that guy didn't. If everybody's interacting online, suddenly you're always conscious about that. Like, who else is in my Zoom room? Who else is reading my WhatsApps? Like, when you're constantly forced into digital communication, it is really top of mind. I just don't think, I think we're past the tipping point. Even if we're reopening the world, even if everybody's vaccinated, people are still going to be talking about privacy. People are going to still be thinking about these solutions. We've gone past the point at which people think that this can just be ignored. It's now top of mind for every individual, every enterprise, and every government in the world.
No, I agree. I think that there's going to be certain things that won't go back to being the same, right? There's a new normal, and I think that blockchain is going to be a very big part of the new normal moving forward as, you know, economies continue to suffer. And the US dollar just keeps printing up more money. Tell them to keep printing some more, I love it. And with that being said, where do you guys see yourself like moving forward? Like how do you position yourself so Secret Foundation and the Secret Network are not really such a secret, and they become, you know, somewhat adoptable to where people understand who they are, what they're doing, and actually utilize it?
Yeah, so the foundation is one piece of the network because we're building certain parts of it. We think about growth, we think about user adoption for the application layer. Like, that's mostly what we concern ourselves with. How do we get more people understanding the technology, using the technology? But there's dozens of other institutions and entities and organizations and individuals who are contributing directly to the network, either at the protocol layer, whether they're operating nodes or contributing protocol code, or they're contributing at the application layer. They're building applications, they're issuing tokens, they're doing all of these different things. Everybody's got a different piece of the jigsaw puzzle, but everybody's contributing a different small portion of that vision. My part of that vision is just to say, we want millions of users. We want to see the use cases emerge that are uniquely served by privacy-first technologies in the blockchain space. And now we're finally seeing, you know, between Ethereum and other public blockchains, real end-user adoption of applications beyond just like transferring value. But you're seeing, you know, decentralized financial applications like Uniswap, you're seeing NFT platforms, like all of those things. If we can be identifying the use cases that are uniquely served by also having privacy protections for users, then I think we've done our job as the foundation. And if we can empower more developers to be building on the network, empower more users to discover those applications, then we've also done our job. But we don't do our job alone. It's like, it's all of these organizations in the ecosystem who build that kind of put everything together. The same way that if you look at Ethereum now, you couldn't point to one institution, you couldn't point to one organization that is leading the development of Ethereum going forward. It's every piece of the puzzle. And like I said, like that's why we started with a bridge to Ethereum. We want people to see how much is possible, not with Secret instead of Ethereum, but sort of combining the two, getting the best of both worlds, getting like the liquidity and the openness and the experimentation of Ethereum with the specific protections enabled by Secret with our cross-chain interoperability functionality. Like all of that together enables all kinds of experimentation. But I don't think anybody was going to sit on this stage in 2017 and be like, my vision is exactly Uniswap.
No.
But that's what's getting used, and it's like a $30 billion protocol, and for good reason. So I won't sit here and say exactly how it's going to get used in a year, but I know, no matter what, that the privacy problem isn't going anywhere, and the privacy solutions will be used.
That makes sense. And moving forward, do you see yourself like adding? I know you guys say layer 2 solutions. You'll work with all the chains. But what about the other type platforms that work with the other chains? Things like Polkadot and other layer 2 type solutions. What do you think about those guys?
So Secret Network is it's an L1 chain that functions as like an L2 or like a side chain for other blockchains. That's how we were designed by default. So if you're familiar with the Cosmos ecosystem, it's a Tendermint chain. We have our own consensus. Smart contracts get deployed on our network, they execute on our network. And what we try to do as a Tendermint chain, first of all, Cosmos Tendermint has always been focused on interoperability. The vision is for all of these Tendermint chains to become interoperable through the inter-blockchain communication protocol or through other means. So not only are we building Secret to be like this standalone universe where things are private by default, using that private by default model, we're building bridges not just to Ethereum, but we're also going to utilize IBC when it's stable for Tendermint chains. We have a Polkadot bridge that's already in development by a member of their ecosystem. We have a Binance Smart Chain in development, that bridge as well, which is like another EVM chain with a low fee environment, true for today. So we're just gonna keep experimenting because every blockchain has the privacy problem. Everybody can benefit from having a solution. We want to be the privacy hub for the entire public blockchain world. It's gonna confuse people who see things only in like an L1, L2 kind of way, where it's like all or nothing. You're either the base layer of everything or you're some side chain off in the ether. Like, I see it as a weird universe where certain things can be planets, but also moons and also suns, and they're all orbiting each other, and they all have these different bridges and portals appearing and disappearing. It's going to be an extremely fluid, multi-chain world. But we know what our place in that world is because of the unique privacy protections of the protocol. I worry about L1s and L2s that don't know their specific function. They don't know their differentiator. They don't know their ethos, because you're going to have to work really, really hard to keep that position in a multi-chain world. You're relying on inertia. You're relying on like user lock-in effects. In a decentralized world, you don't think about user lock-in. You don't think about moats. You think about openness. You think about interoperability. So for us, those are our first principles. But the unique first principle is the privacy by default model. So, again, I can't tell you what we're going to think of in like 5 years as like what's the L1 now, what's an L2 now. Maybe completely different terminology. But we're definitely moving to a multi-chain world. That much is sure.
Where are you guys based out of?
Everywhere.
It's a secret. So with that being said, let's open this up to some questions. Let me get some questions. Anybody got some questions?
Sure, bro.
Jamie Schiller, what you got?
I was wondering about Enigma, like overcoming that whole situation. Yeah, because I noticed you didn't mention it. But I mean, in a positive way, instead of like this whole thing going away, was able to continue on.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? Because that is positive.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people who've been in the space for a while, this initial vision that started in 2015 that I was talking about, these white papers, there was one called Decentralizing Privacy. The second one was called Enigma. And both of these white papers became the foundation for this vision of a secure computation protocol that was going to be an L2 for Ethereum. And then it was being built out by primarily a company also called Enigma, where I used to be head of growth for a while before leaving and doing the foundation route and concentrating fully on Secret Network. Enigma is still around. They're still a company. They're still a development company. They're still contributing protocol level and application level code to Secret Network as part of our decentralized ecosystem. But 2020 was also a super fun year for Enigma because they settled with the SEC over an ICO that they did in 2017. And for a lot of visions, for a lot of companies, for a lot of communities, that's an existential event. That's an extinction event, and that's it. The differentiator for what was happening with our community, this privacy-passionate community that we had cultivated, was it was a real community. Like, not one of the ones that kind of showed up and was like, let's flip this coin, let's have some fun. They stuck around from 2017 to 2020. Oh my God, did I say too many 20s? 2020. And when this existential event occurred, it was the community who kind of picked up the ball and ran with it, helped So Secret Network was launched as an L1 chain, not the L2 vision of Enigma, where Enigma was going to be effectively a side chain that used Ethereum for consensus, but was a private compute layer. Secret Network was an L1 chain, a Tendermint chain from inception. It was launched by, I think, around 20 validators from around the existing Enigma ecosystem. And it had to be sort of a tangential vision. And as a result of the community carrying the torch and continuing to integrate more and more of the Enigma community over time, that's what allowed the project to survive and flourish. But it wasn't the result of the effort of like a single company or a couple of people. Like, it was everybody in this holder community of thousands of individuals who launched the new chain, built a swap mechanism by which people could take their old coins and get Secret. They built all the applications, they launched governance proposals on the chain. We have on-chain governance, we've had 30 different governance proposals. We now have over 6,000 individual delegators on the network. We have 14,000 individual holder addresses outside of exchanges. Like, it's a massive ecosystem because it's been around for a while, but the only reason it survived was because they made it that way. Like, I didn't do that, personally. I didn't pull people kicking and screaming anywhere.
We happen to know something about community, don't we?
Hell yeah.
So with that being said, we got another question for this guy here.
Yeah, good question, man.
Yeah, just kind of backing up, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by L1 and L2, just for people that maybe don't have it?
This is gonna go great on YouTube. No editing, please. Okay, so L1 versus L2. So L1 is layer 1, L2 is layer 2. I don't like it so much.
Hey, let's hold it down. Just give me about 10 minutes. We'll wrap this up. I swear to God we will. Go ahead.
So layer 1 versus layer 2, it just depends on like how you like to name things. People think of like layer 1 as like Ethereum is a layer 1, it's sort of like a settlement layer, but then you're offloading things to layer 2 because Ethereum fees are too high. So you're doing things elsewhere and coming back. I don't really like that terminology too much, but that's kind of how things are being framed. So if somebody asks me, is Secret L1 or is it L2? I default to say layer 1 because we have our own internal consensus, right? Like, we are our own blockchain, people run their own nodes. You can build standalone applications that live entirely on Secret and talk to no other blockchain. But do we serve as a layer 2 to other ecosystems? Can they interact with us? Yes, they can. So we are both, and I'm not very good at explaining the difference because I don't really believe in the difference.
Can someone send Michael Turpin the location, please?
I have a question over here. So, as a technologist, it's really difficult to explain these really complicated, ideas in simple terms. And I was wondering, can you explain in simple terms, and it may not be possible, what it means to be private by design? Like, how do you actually do that? You might get into like ZK snarks and all that other craziness, but like, is there a way that you were able to explain what's actually happening, not by analogy, but here's what actually goes on and how you can prove it's true and it's not been corrupted, because that's what a blockchain means, right?
Got it. So you don't want my really cool toothpaste analogy.
Whatever analogy you got, whatever works.
You said no analogies. All right, I'll start with you. I'm going to do a fast analogy, and then I'll get into like the very fast explanation of the tech and the network. So the very fast analogy is, imagine you want to brush your teeth. You've got toothpaste in a tube. You have two options. One is you squeeze out a little bit of toothpaste from the tube, exactly as much as you need, onto your toothbrush. You brush your teeth. You look like a normal person. The other way to do it is you empty all of the toothpaste onto your bathroom counter, and then you dip your toothpaste in exactly the amount of toothpaste that you want to use. You brush your teeth, and then you leave all of the other toothpaste there forever. So public by default is all the toothpaste is on the counter for everybody else to use. They can all come in and brush their teeth. You don't know where or why. Private by default is you squeeze out the data when you need it. You use, I said data instead of toothpaste, I'm sorry. But that's how I explain private by default versus otherwise. The point is that you can't scoop the toothpaste back in the tube. Once it's all over your bathroom counter, you can't put it back in there. So on blockchains, once the data is public on chain, it's impossible effectively, or extremely expensive, if it is possible, to make public data private. So the private by default model basically just means things stay encrypted in the chain. The smart contracts are interacting with encrypted data. They have encrypted state. And then if something needs to be revealed, it can be. And that's the private by default model. What we try to do is generalizable private computation where any smart contract can be executed in this manner. There's also like narrower solutions where like there's certain types of access control use cases or like MPC for multi-sig use cases. Like those types of applications exist but are narrower. We're focused on general private computation, so we use technologies that allow us to like have different security and privacy trade-offs, but still allow us to attack sort of like generalizable private applications that are still composable with other applications on the network. Is that all right?
It's a hard problem to answer.
Cool. Thank you for excusing my shitty answer. I appreciate that.
Luke Stokes asking the questions no one can answer.
Thank you for coming to my privacy talk in Chicago.
Hold on, brother. Hold on, brother. We get there. We over here.
Hey, sorry, so quick question about analytics. So the good thing about Ethereum is that it's public, it's easy to make analytics. But what happens when everything's secret? Does it break composability? And can you add analytics on top of the secret network?
Yeah, really good question. It does not break composability, fortunately, for things that are executing on the network. Like, it does not break composability in the network. These applications are all still interoperable with each other on the network. They can also utilize, like Ethereum has the ERC20s, we have secret tokens that we call the SNP20 standard. So those are also usable across all of these different applications. They're fungible with each other, but because they're encrypted, right, they're based on an encrypted contract, interactions with that contract are not visible to everyone. Only the user interacting with the contract can create a viewing key and see how they interacted with that particular token contract. So from an analytics perspective, it is challenging because not everything about it is going to be public unless the user wishes it to be. However, you can usually view after the fact, after there's an interaction with a particular financial application. Let's say, if you do a trade on a privacy-preserving AMM on Secret Network, you can't see it as it's coming in, but after the fact, you can see the pool's update. So you can always see like the current status of the balance of the pool by inferring from like past events. So it doesn't break all analytics, and it certainly doesn't break composability, but what it does prevent is a lot of the types of like front-running attacks that are rampant in Ethereum DeFi, because when you're interacting with the contract, the miners cannot see what's actually being executed before it is executed. So there's new challenges, but also new opportunities that comes from the privacy by default model. I think we're going to see new types of applications that utilize the best of the privacy by default world. But the best part about Secret Network is if you want to build something where absolutely everything about it is public by design on Secret Network, you certainly can. Just expose everything. That's the programmable privacy vision, right? Like, you can do it. You can have a perfectly public token standard for Secret Network. The problem is on Ethereum, you really just can't with the public by default model. So we'll see what emerges. I think it'll be experimental, but you've raised a really good point about, like, yes to composability, absolutely. Analytically speaking, there are definitely new challenges, but also new protections.
Maybe to follow up on this one, how do you detect certain bugs? So assuming that we have with Zcash some kind of problems in some of the algorithms, and you wouldn't even know.
Right.
So how can you find, in particular in more complex DeFi applications, that something went wrong which was not as probable as intended?
Yeah, so that's also a very good question. And the more composable things are, I agree with you, the harder it's going to be able to dig up these types of circumstances. But the contract code is public. It's the data that's private. So you can see, and this is something I have to clear up a lot with the network, right? Like, the code is auditable, you can see the code execute. You wouldn't want to interact with a smart contract where you had no idea what it was doing. The same way that you wouldn't want to give permissions on your iPhone to an application. Like, if your camera is asking for your location as well as, you know, access to everything else about your phone's history, you should be a little nervous. Or if your, like, clock app is asking for those same things, like, you should be a little afraid. So smart contracts deployed on Secret Network have public code, but the data itself is encrypted. So that helps. But I agree with you that, like, composability, and I've talked about this, like, composability in Ethereum DeFi creates massive attack surfaces. Any composable blockchain, any composable platform is going to also have its own attack surface and its own challenges. So that is something we're going to have to think about, is like, at the application level, at the smart contract level, like, we write a lot about, like, here are known attacks. Like, there's a lot of them that are mitigated, like replay attacks on our network are mitigated in a lot of ways if the contracts are written responsibly. But if they're written irresponsibly, we have the same problem as every other network. But it's a really great point, a really great question, and I am a bit nervous because there's no way to be perfectly secure anywhere ever.
Question.
Yeah.
So, interesting here you talk about the space, but not necessarily mention any other kind of competing companies like, you know, Monero, Zcash, Dash, Verge,
Yeah.
Horizon Beam. How are you different? Why are you going to be better than them? What am I missing?
Great question. You just named a whole bunch of transactional privacy protocols, which basically exist to protect something about a transaction, like anonymous sender, anonymous receiver, amount, etc. A transaction is really just like a very trivial form of a computation. So when I explain to people where secret network kind of emerged from, there's these two separate evolutionary streams in the blockchain space. You know, you've got Bitcoin, you know, King Bitcoin, always. And then you have these two streams. One said, let's use the blockchain, but not just for transfer of value, but programmable transfer of value. That's more the Ethereum, like smart contracting, blockchain, layer 1 approach. Then there was the other field where it's like, Bitcoin is great, but it's only pseudonymous, it's not really anonymous, we need better privacy protections. This evolutionary stream is really going this way. So a lot of the coins you just mentioned, by the way, Dash is not a privacy coin according to Dash, because they don't want to be delisted. So you've got privacy coins going this way, like the transactional privacy coins. You've got smart contract coins going this way. Over here, kind of recombining these evolutionary streams is our vision, where we're saying, what if you could still have programmability of transfer of value, but you also had data privacy? But rather than saying this exists like it's privacy for transactions at the protocol layer, we don't have privacy for transactions at the protocol layer. Secret itself, like the native coin of our network, is a public coin. You can see when it's sent, you can see when it's staked, you can see how it's voted with for on-chain governance. All of this is public. You can even see when an address has interacted with a contract. What you can't see is the nature of that interaction, because we believe that privacy should exist at the application layer and not necessarily to the same extent at the protocol layer, because then you don't get that choice, right? And where you do provide choice, like with Zcash, if you have shielded and unshielded transactions, if enough people choose to not use the privacy, then you don't have any privacy protections at all. You just have a bunch of unshielded transactions. So that's what separates us from like strictly privacy coins. And this was a deliberate architectural decision, not only because we think it's more compliant, but also because we just think at the application layer is where those protections need to exist. Because every application, whether it's, you know, Uber, Facebook, whatever, like these all require data privacy. From the government's perspective, if they don't protect your data privacy, they're illegal, they're breaking a law, right? They're gonna be fined billions of dollars. So that's our approach, but when governments think about Monero, they're just like, well, this is clearly illegal and it's financing terrorism all over the globe and it's automatically awful. So how can like governments have these competing attitudes towards data privacy and transactional privacy, right? So we're on this side of data privacy where we think enterprises and institutions and governments are going to very much value what's been built because there's transparency at the protocol layer, but privacy at the application layer where you need protections for users, and we're avoiding this side of it where it's like the only reason for this thing to exist is to obscure transactions between individuals, because then it does get a lot more dangerous, and I actually think it's a lot less powerful.
So yours is actually something the government should appreciate and value more?
I'm not a government, so I hope, but I mean, if you ask me if governments value privacy, what I would say is they value their own privacy, absolutely, and the privacy of their own citizens, not at all. So this is what I'm saying, like they understand privacy, they just don't value it equally. So they understand this type of privacy, control and programmable privacy for where it needs to be private. Like governments have so many secrets, that's why you have trillion-dollar espionage programs. But at the same time, you know they're going to crack down on anything that's purely illicit. So that's not what we do, and that's definitely a differentiator, and it's like the first thing, so I'm glad you asked. It's the first thing I usually try to clarify when I sit and I talk, is like, we're not a transactional privacy coin. In fact, what we're doing is a lot more powerful, a lot more interesting, a lot more compliant than just saying you can send money from A to B and no one will ever know.
Can you talk about just like the basic money questions, I guess, like the market cap and stuff like about, you know, how is the token spent? Like, you know, how do people pay for these secret contracts and so forth?
Yeah. No, good question. I have no idea where these questions are coming from. It's so trippy.
Welcome to the community.
Yeah. I'm like,
We don't have half-ass questions here, sir.
I just meant physically. I have no idea where people are sitting. No, but that also. So, secret. If you're familiar with Ethereum, you know that like ETH itself is paid for gas on the network to interact with any smart contract. So on our network, secret is the ETH of the network. The native coin functions as gas for when you interact with smart contracts on our network, or when you send a transaction like on ETH. So the basic functionality of the coin is network fees, computational or transactional. But because we're a Tendermint chain, it's also used for staking. So you can stake and delegate your secret holdings. You know, Ethereum is transitioning to a proof of stake network. We've been one since inception. So you can run your own validator or you can stake your coins. And it's also used for on-chain governance. So if you hold the token and you're staking it, you can use it to vote on governance proposals in the network, which can be controlling spending, controlling inflation, other aspects of the protocol like node limits. So that's the utility of the coin, and it's existed for the protocol since its inception. And the more applications that are built on the network, the more other types of use cases there could be for the coin. But those will never go away. Those are inherent to the working of the protocol. And the more applications that launch, and the more demand for gas, the more demand for Secret itself.
Well, I'll tell you what. We've had a lot of people here, man. A lot.
Yeah, we did.
No. I mean, a lot of people here, like,
Oh, okay,
at
sorry.
Crypto Monday.
I thought you just meant right now.
We've done like 150, 160 of these already. And I tell you what, you've been a great speaker, man. You've been very knowledgeable. You've been real clear in your diction. You're also very technical. So I'm excited about your project, and I'm the kind of guy, like, you know, technical marvels exist in a lot of places, right? I've seen a lot of projects fail with good technology. Technology really doesn't mean much when you have other people that can duplicate it. It really matters when you're 100 times better than everyone else. If you're not 100 times better than everyone else, then your tech really doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
What matters is really the people that are moving the project more than anything else.
100%.
That and timing, obviously, right? Because if you'd have done this 4 years ago, you'd have fell flat on your face, right? So timing is going to be your number one ingredient for everything else, and after that's going to be team. So it looks like you got timing and team down packed. So I'm looking excited about Secret Network and Secret Foundation.
Can I say one thing about community since you brought it up, man?
I mean, we got round of applause, we got the dopest community in the world.
That was so much better than the first round of applause, too. They're killing it.
If you guys don't give me a real round of applause, I'm never doing this again. Round of applause, we got the dopest community in the world.
Oh, that's pretty good.
You guys know Dubai is really calling me, right? Dubai is like literally trying to pay me to move over there. So like I said.
The reason I brought it up is because of the community that's already here. But like I was saying to the question earlier, which is a great question, is like, why is this thing still here? Why is this thing surviving? We have a massive community, some of whom are like a big part of why we're in this room at all. Like I gotta thank Brendan for helping convince me to come down here and convince you to host me. Brendan helps manage a huge part of our community, like on the awareness side when we try to spread the word about privacy and the project and everything else.
Brandon reached out to me for you, by the way. Brandon, I don't know if he's on your team or not, but if he's not, he should be.
What is the team, man? Like, we're a decentralized ecosystem. Brendan helps run the awareness. So we have like a dozen community committees that are all run by people around the globe, basically. Like, we have dozens of teams. There's not just one organization. So the best thing that's come out of the last couple of years is we've had to go fully decentralized. There's no single point of failure for the network. There's no single point of failure at the application layer. Like, we've got 50 mainnet nodes. We've got, like I said earlier, like thousands of people around the world contributing to this. People have told me we have the best community in crypto. I say thank you, Brendan, when I say that, because he's told me it. So thanks, Brendan, for saying that. It means a lot. Oh, there you go, Brendan. But we really fucking do. Can I swear on here?
I mean, you can.
Okay, cool.
You're the CEO, so I mean, it's on you.
I don't know
if you're raising any more money. You're raising money. I don't raise money, so I don't give a fuck.
So if we were like saying like, yeah, we're doing our Series B or whatever, that's not the kind of thing we are, right? Like if we were like one company like doing like this BC round and like if we were something normal, we're a movement, very much so. It is like a privacy movement that's emerged within the Web3 space. So if you care about this stuff at like an ethos level, at a development level, like just get in touch with me or get in touch with anybody in our community because there's hundreds of projects ongoing. There's anonymous teams building. There's very public teams building. There's at every facet of the protocol, right? And if you're not a developer, there's a million ways to contribute on educational materials, awareness. We had an awareness call earlier today. We do weekly committee calls where people come in. We had 50 people on there contributing their ideas. I think that was a record. Last week was like 48. So we got 2 more. Every week 2 more. We'll be in a pretty good shape later. So please be a part of this community because it's so exciting and it's not top down. It's very bottom up. That's the best thing that came out of like this existential event type of stuff is it's community led. Anybody can contribute. Anybody can create and extract value from the protocol. And we're not going anywhere. We already went through the worst shit you could.
I agree. And so do we, y'all. We put it behind us. We're moving forward, onward and upward. Secret's not going nowhere. I'm going to Dubai, but I'll be back. And with that, we're going to bring some more dope people, some more dope friends. I want to give a shout out to my guest today, man. Give him a round of applause, Mr. Tor Bair CEO.
Thank you, guys.
Also, let's give a round of applause for the amazing staff of Ache Cigar Bar
Yeah.
and Lounge, man. You guys have been so cool, man. We got a couple of them that accept Bitcoin. They accept Bitcoin. Please feel free and generous. Feel free and generous to go ahead and tip your bartenders and your waiters in Bitcoin. Give a round of applause for Mr. Michael Turpin. He finally made it. A round of applause, a round of applause. Every week, y'all, I have to change locations, unfortunately, because we're doing a skip, skedaddle. Our lawyer-in-chief concierge is doing nothing at the political level, unfortunately. But unfortunately, so he's doing nothing for us at the political level, unfortunately. We still gotta move. So you guys just kind of pay attention to the flyers. On the flyers, I try to post the actual address of the event. I do not have the password to my meetup.com page. Every week someone sends me messages from meetup.com and says we changed locations. Yes, I know, thank you. Look at the other social media pages. What do you want me to tell you? I don't know my meetup.com password or email, and I'm sorry, I don't know where it's at. So you're just gonna have to deal with it. So we have to look at the other social media channels to find us, figure it out. You got Instagram, you got Telegram, you got Facebook, we even got Twitter, and we got YouTube too, man. We got YouTube popping off, and Tor, tell them how they can find you.
Oh, heck yeah. You can find me on Twitter. It's my first name, last name, just Tor Bair, T-O-R, B as in boy, A-I-R. Secret Network is at Secret Network. So you should definitely follow that because we drop all kinds of shit there. I'm on Clubhouse now because apparently enough people have iPhones that's a thing, and I do too. So you can follow me on Clubhouse. It's also Tor Bair, and I talk there a lot because it's really fun to talk about this stuff, and people seem really passionate about it, and not enough people end up speaking about it.
How did we go backwards in technology? How the fuck is Clubhouse a thing? Chat rooms came back.
Because of COVID.
How did we come back? How did we went backwards with technology.
Once you join a club, you don't want to get kicked out.
How did we go backwards? Now we're like, I thought next thing we was gonna do like holograms. Now we go back to chat rooms. You guys are that lonely? You guys go to chat rooms? How about this? We'll just do, we'll do events. We'll do here in Puerto Rico. We'll keep the real live events. How about that?
That sounds great to me. That sounds great to me. I'm also hanging around, so come chat with me. I'm flying out of here on Wednesday. I'm sorry I'm not here longer, but tonight I'm chilling. I will of course come back.
You gotta come back at a time where we can actually hang out.
I got a COVID test just for this. It's negative.
So I just got today, so no soledad.
Alright, you guys.
We're all Gucci.
That's what we got for you guys, man. Give me a round of applause one more time and give us some DJ.